Hey chess fans, this is Brian Castro with Better Chess Training. I had so much fun solving the tactics problems on Chessity, and I got a lot of great feedback from you guys that I decided to do it again. So enjoy this session of tactics training on Chessity. Hey guys, here we are on Chessity again, and we're going to do some training. My rating fell down a little bit since the last time. It's at 1971. The problem is once your rating gets a little higher, every time you get a problem wrong, you lose 20 or 25 ratings points. But let's see if we can get that up a little today. And we're going to do a medium tactics session. Okay, let's take a look at our first problem here. You can see the clock's already running because I had to set up the video. But it is white to move here, and we've got a couple things going on. We can see very few pieces on the board. We've got this king over here, and we've got my king's fairly open. Actually, my king's in check now, so we have to see what the best move is here. And it looks like looks like white's winning. So I have to think that the first couple moves here will be to well, I think the general idea here is that he's forking my king and knight, and so I have to avoid losing this. So if I move my king, he's just going to take my knight, and it will be a draw. However, if I retreat here, if I retreat my knight, then it'll be difficult, a little more difficult for him to continue on with his attack, or well, at least my knight will be safe. So I actually think that's the answer. Let me just make sure there's nothing else going on here. Like he's not going to checkmate me if I block with my knight. There's no way my queen can come in to help. And anything, it looks like any move with my king will lose my knight. So the only other thought I have is if I somehow give up my knight, is there a way to trade into a winning king and pawn endgame, or a queen and pawn endgame? And I don't think it's the case. If I move my knight here, because my only thought would be is if he takes the knight, is there a way I could trade with trade the queens so that I can somehow get opposition? And I'm looking at the board here, and I don't think that that's the case. But well, let's just see and find out. Okay. Okay, great. Got the first one down. Let's move to the next one. And if you remember from my last video, the goal is to get 9 problems correct before I get 3 wrong. And preferably I like to get all 9 correct here. Here we see, again, it's white to move, and we have a queen here, we got the rook here. And whenever the king is open like this, you always want to look for forks. For example, here, queen to e4 would fork the king and the rook. And then from here we could see, though, he can bring the rook back to block. So is there something better we can be doing? In fact, is there maybe a checkmate somewhere that we can be looking at? Let's see here. Now he's got he's going to start checking too. So I'm guessing that the solution has to be some type of check. Also, he has an extra pawn, so something decisive would be good. Well, let's see. If I play queen to e4 check, the only thing that doesn't lose the rook right away would be rook to g6. And then after that, we can look at something like, rook to f7 check. So then where could he go? Well, obviously, if he moves away, so after queen to e4 check, rook to g6, rook to f7 check. If he moves away, then I can win the rook and threaten checkmate. So that would be one thing. So if he moves to h6, is there a follow-up from there that would be successful? And so that would be the question. Well, from there, it would be rook to something like or queen to f4 check, because then he can't go back to h7 because my rook would be covering that, and his rook is covering the g6 square, so he'd have to block there, and then that would be checkmate there. So that would be one thing. So queen to e4 check, and anything where he moves his king, I would win this rook. So if he brings his rook back, and then after that, I would have to figure that I would be able to bring my king somewhere where it would avoid perpetual check, and I think I could do that. So let's try that. I think queen to e4 check is the answer. Okay, and then I play here, rook to f7 check, and there we are. Okay, let's take a look at this problem. Again, white to play, and we see here the king is in the middle. My king's fairly safe. I'm not in check. Here on Chessity, if you are in check and you play an illegal move, you automatically get the problem wrong. So I set up to avoid that. Okay, a couple things here. We see we're putting some pressure on the f7 pawn. We see here, this queen and bishop battery. We see the queen and king are protecting here. Is there a way to maybe deflect this queen by maybe playing this bishop over here? That would be one thing. Then he could maybe block with the knight. But let's see if so. That's one idea. I think it has to be some type of action against the king. Let's see here. Bishop to h3, and then if queen takes h3, bishop or queen takes f7 check, and then forced would be king to e8 or d8. The only problem here is that I don't really have a follow-up to that, so that is an issue. Why maybe bishop to h3 is not the answer. Before I keep looking around, let me see what other aspects of this position that we might want to look at. Trying a little harder to look at the positions from a positional standpoint before I go too far into calculating random stuff, I guess you could say. Let's see. We have a bishop here that can come here too with check. So maybe something to look at there. Can we bring... See, the bishop over here, the knight can just take it, I feel, there. So one thought, what if something like knight takes f7, bishop or queen takes f7, and then something bringing this bishop over? But it looks like there's no checks that could, move this king out of the way here. Let me see, what else can we do? Bishop to h3, queen takes h3 seems safe. Wondering if there's any other ways to get at that king once it is on d8. Or another way to attack the queen. So those are some other options there. Now, actually, one idea, let's see, would be something like bishop to b5 check, and then after c6 we can take with the knight, which would attack the queen, and after b takes c6 we'd have bishop takes c6 check with a fork of the rook as well. So that's one idea. However, I don't know if it's forcing. So after bishop to b5 check, he could actually also play bishop to d7, and then well, what do we have here? Do we have any type of forcing action here? I don't know. Well, we do. We have bishop takes d7 check, and then if queen takes, he's just going to lose the queen. But if he moves his king to d8, then we have a fork with knight takes f7 check, and after king takes d7, then knight takes h8. So actually that looks pretty good. Let's take a look at this again. So bishop to b5 check, and he's got two options. Well, he can move, if he moves the king to d8, then we would just fork here with knight takes f7 check. If he blocks with c6, then we take knight takes c6, and then if b takes c6, okay, uh, because otherwise he'd have a discovered check. So we're attacking the queen. So b takes c6, bishop takes c6 check, and then after he blocks or moves the king, then we just take the rook here, and we'd be winning a couple pawns and a rook for 2 pieces. If he blocks with this bishop, we win this bishop with bishop takes d7 check, and of course, taking with the queen, we would just lose a lot of material, so if he moves his king over there. So let me think if there's anything else that we want to look at before that. I think that is the answer, because I don't think bishop to h3 has anything going for it. So let's take a look. Just a quick look here. I just want to make sure there's nothing with knight to c6. I don't think so. Okay, bishop to b5 check. Okay, and here we have c6 as planned. So knight takes c6, and bishop takes c6 check, and we got it. And we got +9 for our rating, so that's great. Okay, let's take a look at this one now. Here we've got a little bit going on here. King is over here in the corner, and we've got controlling the 6th rank. Our king is relatively safe. There aren't any big threats at the moment. I think I see the answer here. And we have a fork here with knight to c6. Would fork the queen and the rook. If the queen moves, we just take the rook. And of course, there's this pin on this pawn, which makes the fork possible. Now, before I go into this, I just want to make sure there's not anything better in terms of attacking the king. And the only only check here would be this rook one, and I think we can just say that that's probably not it. Also, is there any other way to win this queen? Actually, I have something better. Well, let's see here. The queen is trapped. Looks like, oh, this probably doesn't work either. Rook to d8, I think, is met by queen to c7. So, and then after queen takes c7, rook takes c7, there's no follow-up with the rook to make it better than knight to c6. So one of the principles here when we're doing text is when we see a good move, we always want to just look for a better move. That's something that Chessity has helped teach me, because sometimes there will be a move that looks great, and then I realized that instead of winning the exchange, I could have checkmated the king. So in any case, let's try it. Okay, and we win the exchange. Okay, next problem. Okay, it's black to move this time. And here material is even. Both kings are pretty open here. And I'm looking, this is some type of end game. And I'm wondering if I could win material. What immediately pops out to me are these kings are in opposition. And when in a rook endgame, when the kings are opposition, oftentimes you can gain a you could force the king back. So that is something we want to look at. And so the first candidate I'm looking at is something like rook to a3 check. And after the king moves back, say to e2, I can move here, king to f4, and then this pawn could be won. And then he can follow up maybe with trying to attack this pawn. But then in that case, I can actually just continue on here with checking him and then winning more of his pawns. Or I can move this pawn up to be protected by the king. So I actually think that's the simple solution. And then I can always actually just check his king back. The problem is that I have an extra move. Well, I mean, I get to move first, so I get to push him back first. So let's try that. And I think that's the solution. There's no real way to trap this rook. So I think that's the solution, and I'd be able to win a pawn or two here. Okay? Oh, I got it wrong. So I guess I should have looked at that a little more. And actually, I'm seeing here that, well, we'll take a look at it. Okay. Okay, I recorded this after I did the session, but this is the problem I got wrong here, and I just wanted to go over it real quick. And the Chessity actually puts these little images or the arrows and stuff here to show you what's happening. And the solution here, and so the thing we need to note here is that we can win a pawn, and the solution is f4 check. Okay, and then if he takes back with the rook, the idea is that rook to a3 check drives the king away, and that we win the rook. Okay, so going back after f4 check, he can't go back to the second rank, so he actually has to move away, and then black will win the f pawn and actually both f pawns, and then this pawn as well. So this is superior to the solution I tried. And again, whenever you do these tactical problems, it's important to go back and make sure you understand why you got wrong, the problems you got wrong. Okay, so let's get back to the problem solving. Here we have black to move, and actually, whenever I get one wrong, it's kind of part of the challenge is just getting back in terms of our getting back our equilibrium here. And so let's take a look here. A couple things I'm seeing right away is this f2 square is fairly open. And we also see here that this rook is unprotected. Um, and there's an opportunity to fork here. So here's my idea. Queen to d4, threatening checkmate. The queen comes up to protect this square. And then I have two attackers on g4 and only one attacker on, or one defender in the queen. I can also play something like queen takes f2 check to deflect, but then I lose the bishop too. So I actually think it's queen to d4, and after something like queen to f3, bishop takes f3 or g4, or queen takes g4 is good. Let's see, they might have me make a decision after I play that. So let's see, I think queen to d4 is the first move. Okay, and that's it. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so we obviously have this king is stalemated in the corner here. He has no place to move. And we've got, he's threatening to promote here as well. So the action is going to be fairly quick. And I think I already know the answer to this. Is a fairly common checkmating pattern. And it's just rook takes h2 check, king takes h2, and then queen to g2 is mate. And I just make sure I'm not in check, so that should be it. Okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, again, these king caught in the center. So these are, some of these problems are from actual games, but even if they're not, having your king in the center, unless you know this opening and the fact that the king is safe there, is usually kind of dangerous. So, well, what do we have here? We have this queen here that's out here, this rook that's here. We have a fairly active knight that is being attacked. So is there a place we can put this knight that is safe? I think that is going to be the question, and have this queen bearing down, but nothing too big yet. So let me just take a moment here to assess the situation. And it doesn't look like there's a reason why I would want my knight to be taken. But where's the best place to put it is the question. We have c3, which looks fairly safe. We have c5, which would lose a pawn after bishop takes c5, d takes c5, knight takes c5. We have knight to g3. Oh, that's what the situation is. We also have our h2 square. I'm glad I looked, because this rook is bearing down. It would be checkmate. So the answer, I have to stop checkmate and I have to free this knight. So the answer looks like knight to g3. And that's it. Okay, two more to go. Let's see if we can do it without getting any wrong. Okay, king, knight is pinned here. looks like we just have oh, and we have this rook hanging here. So this knight is pinned, so it cannot protect this square. So I think the answer is um, bishop to f5 check, and after the king moves to g2, which would be the only legal square attacking this rook, I take the knight with check, and then after he takes back, I take the rook, and then I'll be up a piece. Okay? I'm pretty sure that's the case because I wouldn't want to take this first because then he could take back with the king and then there's no fork. Okay? And here. Okay? Good. And finally, hopefully finally, let's see here. Well, first thing we have to notice is that the queen is pinned. This looks fairly straightforward. I think I just take this queen, and then after he takes back, I take this bishop. So the main thing to notice, this is pinned, because if you do an illegal move here on Chessity, you will get it wrong. And so it does help you with your board vision and noticing threats and helping make sure you see that. Okay, so let me just take a look, make sure there's nothing else. This queen's pinned, so there's nothing else I can do. So I do think it's queen takes c3, b takes c3, and then rook takes e2. Notice here the bishop doesn't have any checks to get out of being taken by the rook in between. There's no in-between move, so I think that's the answer. Okay, rook takes e2, and the game is completed. Okay, let's see. Hey guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this tactics training session. If there's any of the positions that you had trouble with, let me know in the comments and let's start a conversation there. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video, please press the like button and subscribe, and come back next Tuesday for tactics and Thursdays for beginner and intermediate videos. Okay, good luck with your chess and talk to you soon.